All right, we're doing otherwise pretty positive review of the Ryobi Jet Fan 2 cycle full crank gas powered blower with a 3 stage turbine and the blower I was coming off of. I'm a real Echo guy, like American built. Used to buy the backpacks when I wanted to show how much oomph I had as a small business. I would buy the biggest backpack I could, but actually came off of one of their hand blowers as my brain got smarter and my back got weaker. I switched to hand blowers like a lot of my friends use, and so I came off of one of the LN low noise Echoes that had the curved shaft, and the problem I ran up with there, although this is not a review on them, they may watch it, was that it arrived running rich from my favorite shop, and I've had that happen with the same type of thing with the Stihl handheld blowers that go for roughly 149er, and they're a great value also, not American, but running rich, but taking a long time to get a long warm-up time to get to where it wasn't missing every other firing of the piston, and quit making the lugging and went into the full-throated 2 cycle roar. It was taking a long time for the Echo to get to that point because it was running rich, and I let that go on because I was busy last year until probably deposits had occurred in the exhaust port and things like that happen with Echoes, before I said, this is not right that we have a proprietary adjustments on the Echo carburetors. I took it into the shop and I said, could you, right at the counter, use your fancy little drivers that work with the fancy little carburetor adjustments and lean this out for me? And they did. And it gradually wound down to where it really was virtually unstartable and never would achieve that full-throated roar. And then they didn't stand behind it because it had been 5 weeks or something instead of 4, even though before that period I had them lean it out and they knew the problem. So I'm sorry, Echo, you kind of lost me on not having adjustable carb like Stihl. But anyway, in full-throated rebellion, I went and bought this partially because of the cool looks, partially because I've turned on some lithium-powered turbine kind of design blowers and found them to be really strong as long as the battery lasts, and over there at Home Depot and so on. So I was impressed with the power, really blowing leaves better than the curved shaft, the curved nozzle Echo. The Echo low noise is lower noise, and I have been actually driven from one contract sweeping job with the LCRA because of the noise of my tools. So I understand the need sometimes for low noise, especially if you're in a trendy neighborhood with environmentally wonderful people. So, but this is allowed, and as one YouTuber said, that probably louder than the decibels printed on there. One cool thing, they vent the exhaust gas forwards into the fan, and you can kind of feel it being warm on the bottom side of the nozzle, which may give a little kick because just to show that my dad wanted to build a BD5 like in James Bond, not the jet. The propeller version one actually changed the trim of the aircraft because of the thrust of just of that little hot little probably a 2 cycle piston engine that's in the BD5 coming out the side of the plane, changed the trim because of thrust. So they vented it forward, but still a pretty loud device. And the positives are the power. It doesn't push to the side, doesn't have to have a curved nozzle to stop it from pushing to the side like Echo has done. It doesn't push to the side like the Stihl 149 or whatever version. Great little blower. Doesn't suck your pants into the fan on the side like the blowers that have a fan that turns this direction versus this direction. So you're sucking in the end. As other people comment, it doesn't suck in your pants. One really cool thing for your physics nerds, you can actually see there's a lot of plastic in here, 3-stage fan, a lot of plastic spinning in the same axis as the flywheel and everything else in the engine. So when you first start it, you'll go, whoa. It's not pushing me to the side or fatiguing me that way or anything, but it kind of resists my control motions when I change the axis of the tool, and you'll get used to it in about 2 minutes, and you'll never notice it again. But it just shows that physics is fun. But anyway, great little blower. Problem I ran into halfway through a season, and I work more than quite a bit more than a homeowner would with this, having a weekly 3-building office building area in the woods in the central Texas, where live oaks, which stay green all winter, drop their leaves twice a year, once in the fall like other trees and once in the spring. They're overachievers in every way. And a lot of blowing on that parking lot, and another L-shaped parking lot shopping center twice weekly, but not anywhere near as much blowing there. And so I put in, and then I have my yard jobs on the side, but this did not get used for a whole season as much as a crew would use running out of their truck, doing a lawn in 10 minutes with their zero turn and running back on the truck after blowing. I didn't put that much mileage on this, but I do have jobs on the side. And that brings up, the first failure was a simple one. I thought that I had fried the pull starter, but actually after I bought 2 new pull starters for only $8 each at the Outdoor Power Place, I found out that there was just a little loop of rope off of this, and I just pushed it back with my finger. It was fixed. So waste of $16 there. But then not long after that, I found that I couldn't pull the starter again. And I thought, well, time to get out one of my $8 replacements. And I was so smart to buy them. And that must be the problem again. Well, it wasn't. And I put a new end plate and starter for $8 on here. And I was able to actually start it and run it another day. And then I couldn't pull it again, and I said, well, fair, I let it sit, and I thought, a whole season out of this for the price, and with the high air volume I was getting, and, I think better than the little curved schnozzle Echo, I bought another one and just let this sit around. But I finally wanted to see what was inside here, and of course, I found out again that I misdiagnosed something, just like thinking I needed a whole new end plate and spool and everything, and finding out it was just a little chunk of rope hanging off there, a one-time deal, never happened again. Well, when I started taking this apart, I was going to actually make a YouTube and say my Ryobi had a catastrophic engine failure, must have thrown a rod or something, because I couldn't even turn this that engages the plastic pawls on the starter. I couldn't turn it at all. And actually today I just said, I want to see what's inside that thing, and I saw that I had a number 2 Torx wrench in the pocket of my truck door, and that wasn't actually lost, and so I took it apart. And now I'm going to be able to tell you what you might. One problem you might run into with an otherwise well-built device, and I only say that because of how long I used it. It has the verbiage that it's full crank, which I learned a little bit about that when the Orange Giants were yelling at each other. I think they both had excellent engines in their machines, the Echo and the Stihl people, but one of them hurled the insult to the other that it had a front starter rope, which means that it must have been associated with an engine that was cheap. And I was like, what to make of that? I didn't know. And the other people vehemently denied it. Well, this full crank thing, I looked it up, and that apparently is the debate. The really cheap engines, the really cheap stuff, I'm sorry to say Home Light. Anyway, the really cheap blowers, sorry to say Mini Craftsman. The really cheap ones apparently have an engine with only a bearing in the front, nothing serviceable on the back. It's so difficult to put new starter on if it has a front-mounted starter that you just throw the thing away, I guess, with certain weed eaters and blowers. So that was that. And then when they say full crank here, Ryobi's saying, hey, bearings in the front, bearings in the back, starter in the back were cool. And I actually kind of agree with them that there may be even more than that, and that it is a better engine. But I am probably creating all sorts of false narratives here. But anyway, engine was fine. So why am I not being able to pull? Was there a catastrophic failure? So I take it apart today, and it is really cool. When you put this together out of the box, all you do is put this onto there, nothing else. Very cool. And you see this, and you're going, whoa, man, that's futuristic. That's like the tail light of an American car from back in the we just invented the jet engine, you guys, days when everything had to look jet powered and yet functional, because we see some dust deposits. This cone is maybe a little turbulence here is dropping more dust, but for the most part, a smooth lines of dust going down this cone, and the axial kind of airflow converging down, and that's about all I know and more than I know. And the only other thing that I knew was it wasn't an engine problem, because as soon as I started taking things apart here with the number 2 Torx wrench, I started finding these, and I said, looks like turbine vanes to me. And I only found that many. And as I got it fully apart, which only required 3 little screws here, I mean, everything else is exterior screws, that it just came apart much easier than I thought. A little bit of a touchy point where the whole long axial fan is mounted in the front into a bearing here with a washer and a spring, which I would have to get back together. It might not be that hard, but I'm looking at $8 for a part like this, and I've got some damage. I got this got to be bought. My time, the aggravation of trying to get those 2 little things on there and get it all put back together. And I'm making a YouTube instead, and I've bought a new blower. So I call me lazy, but I'll keep these parts around because engine was swell. Engine is nothing wrong. And what happened, I think, is that we started blowing out turbine vanes. And when I first replaced the end plate, just by sheer chance, I was able to start it and use it for another day. But things like this were happening inside, like vanes actually hitting the stationary vanes around the outside so hard that they actually jammed in there, like as if it had been in a tornado or something, and just total destruction. And since I've looked here, these probably the most tender vanes because they're long. It's a 3-stage fan, as I said. This, and this. These are completely gone, all sheared off. There's only 2 and a fraction of these left, and there's only this much stuff that has come out while I've been working. So apparently while I was working, I was blowing vanes out the front, and it was still functioning pretty well. So maybe some of these stages are more important than other ones, because I never really noticed a big fall off in air volume. But anyway, be that as it may, I started thinking, well, what did I do here? I mean, it's not like I was trying to make this kind of fan do what the kind of laterally mounted blower people do, where they have a fan going this way, and you can even stick a big pipe on the end of it and use it for a vacuum and hold it sideways and suck it and grind up leaves and sticks into a bag. And amazingly, the fan is never damaged. Apparently, this is a little more tender. And then I was thinking, I bet I sucked a foreign object in there. What could it be? Like a rock or something, and here I've gone almost a year using this standing upright and doing parking lots. And I remembered one of the very last jobs I did was one of my residential kind of things that I do on the side. The parking lots are routine, but the residential things I crawled underneath a person's like 15-foot trampoline, just to give them that extra value, because this isn't a great big long nozzle, even though it's got kick butt airflow. I'm kind of blowing from the edge of the tramp, and I really am not getting all the live oak leaves, which are kind of heavy and leathery, out from under there. So I crawl under there, and I'm humping along on the ground under a trampoline, blowing, and probably sucking things right in there, which is the air intake for this device. And so I probably got away with it that day, and I probably heard little things rattling against the nozzle, and some of that rattling might have been these things flying out. So I'm trying to say how many of you are going to really be out there underneath a tramp using this alternately to blow with and then to push yourself along with and do the worst possible thing you could do to it? Probably not too many of you. So I can wholeheartedly recommend this device. It is loud, but I think you'll enjoy it. And that is Outdoor Janitor's Report.